Hey friends, happy midweek and happy Wednesday to you. And if you were joining with us anywhere in the world, we say welcome to you. And we're glad that you're here sharing life with us. And we hope that this message finds you doing well. If you're watching it, that means you're connected to us in some way, shape, or form. And we just want to say thanks for sharing life with us. And thanks for letting us share life with you. It's been a great journey. And we're going to conclude our series tonight on the Jesus is topic that we've been discussing for the last few weeks. And so what we're doing is walking through areas where Jesus has made claims about himself. And they've been great claims, and we've walked through some of those, and tonight we're going to hit on a big one. And so you may not know this or not, but this week is Easter week. This is the Passion Week. So Sunday is Easter Sunday. We've got Good Friday on Friday. You've got all the great things that happen between now and then. You got Passover starting this week if you do some stuff with that. And so there is just a lot going on this week. And for my family as well, I posted last night, if you're friends with me, that our son Declan has been really sick the last week and a half. And he's just been real struggling. Some days he would be better, but most days he would have a fever and he would just be lethargic. And I'm talking, I've never seen this kid so tired in my life. And he would just sleep all day, all afternoon, whatever it be. And then maybe the next day he would wake up, feel okay. And then by the evening, he's right back down. So we finally took him to the doctor, and they said that he's probably got mono. And that's no good. That's no fun. But it's been exhausting for all of us. And now we've got sinuses and all that other stuff that goes with it. And so this has been an exhausting week for us already. And I don't say that to give you, to seek sympathy. Why I say that is because what we're dealing with is so minimal compared to what Christ walked through in the last week of his life. Right? This is so minimal of things, and I think we get overwhelmed sometimes by looking at our life and just saying, oh man, not another one, not this again, not that again, not this circumstance. And we allow ourselves to overcomplicate it to a point where we become lethargic in our faith, right? Why God, why God, why God? But if anything, this week has reminded me more so of the Easter week and just what Christ had went through and just how exhausted he must have been. And yet he had you and I and the world in mind when he continued to go to the cross. And so tonight, as we dive into our midweek, I just want to say, man, this week has just been a little bit more impactful for me, just because of the week that we've dealt with. And maybe we haven't had an exhausting week like this in the past for a while, but this one really kind of opened my eyes to, man, my circumstances are so minimal compared to what Christ went through. And so tonight's midweek, we're going to discuss what Jesus is saying to Pilate when he's having this conversation, when he's already been arrested in the garden, and Jesus goes through 6 different trials at the end. 3 of them are political trials and 3 of them are religious trials. And he's going through them and being accused of these things, being accused of those things. The religious leaders, they don't have access to death. They can't penalize someone to death, but they know the Romans can. So they're spinning and manipulating what's going on so that Rome can feel threatened by Jesus. And so as it goes from a religious trial to a political trial and back to a religious, because it's going back and forth. And what you'll find is Pilate says that I have no grounds here. I don't know what you guys want me to do about all of this stuff. This is your issue. You guys deal with it. This is a Jewish issue. Deal with it. And so in the process, we're going to be in John chapter 18, and Jesus and Pilate is a Roman governor, and so he's on the political side of all these things. And so he's dealing with Jesus, he's talking to him, and he's asking him questions like, hey, who are you? So I just want to read in John 18 and just kind of go along with what's being said and let you hear what's happening. Okay, so let's start with verse 28, and I'm just going to read, and then we'll talk a little more about it. It says, then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early in the morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, what charges are you bringing against this man? So this is the first that Pilate's getting of Jesus. So, they've been kind of doing it at the appellate court level with Herod, and it's going back to Caiaphas, and they're just going back and forth. And now they say, okay, we're gonna up it. We're taking you to the governor, and we're gonna deal with this. And so Pilate came out to them. And he says, so what charges are you guys bringing? Why is this a Rome issue? And if he were not a criminal, they replied, look at verse 30, we would not have handed him over to you. And Pilate said, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. So Pilate's establishing the fact that there are separate laws. The Jews have their laws. Rome has their laws. This is not a Rome issue. You guys deal with it on your own, but they objected, right? But we have no right to execute anyone. That's their claim. So when they say that, because look at what Pilate says. He said, judge him by your own law. And they already go, but we have no right to execute anyone. So they're saying that what Jesus has done is so grievous that he has to lose his life for it, because it's not only a threat to us, it's a threat to the world. And so this took place to fulfill what Jesus, verse 32, had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Now Jesus is quick-witted, and he knows the thoughts and the hearts of man. But this is his reply in verse 34. Is that your own idea? Or did you talk to others about me? So he's saying, are you coming to that conclusion on your own? Or are you just hearing other people say that I'm a king? And that's a pretty impactful response to being asked the question, are you a king? Because Jesus doesn't say yes or no. He doesn't really answer the question. He just says, at what point are you asking that question, Pilate? Is it from your own accord, from your own thought? Or did somebody else plant this idea in your mind? And Pilate responds, am I a Jew? So what business is it? Like, why do I care? I'm not Jewish. Your own people and your chief priests, they handed you over to me. So what is it that you've done? And look at what Jesus says. Verse 36, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. I love this response that Jesus gives. Because basically what he's saying is that, listen, if my kingdom were here, your people would not stand a chance. The Jews here would not stand a chance. If I called upon the heavenly host to come and free me at this moment, there is nobody in the world that would ever even come close to standing a chance against the army that serves me. But Jesus says, my kingdom is from another place. So Jesus acknowledges the fact that he is a king, but it's unknown. And so Pilate says, so you are a king then, said Pilate. And Jesus answered, you say I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born, now listen to this, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. This is a huge statement. So what Jesus is doing is he's letting Pilate know, he goes, listen, I speak truth. And when I speak truth, those who listen to me obey my command. What is the truth that Jesus is referring to? Well, go earlier in John chapter 14 and look at what he says in verse 6. Well, let's just hop over there real fast. Let's see if I can get there in a hurry. John 14:6. Let's see what this says. Jesus answers, I am the way and the truth, catch that, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. This is a huge statement. And Jesus says those who know truth, which what he's saying is those who know me, they listen. They listen. They obey. And then Pilate responds with, well, what is truth anyway? And then they go out and he tries to pass them back to the Jews. And the Jews start shouting, crucify him. And now Barabbas comes into the picture. And I was talking with a guy the other day, about a week or two ago, about this topic, and it kind of blew my mind what he suggested. And I'm going to share it with you as we close our midweek tonight. So Pilate's up there, he's trying to pass it back, but you have this whole crowd of Jews standing in the palace courtyard or wherever they are. And Barabbas is probably held in a cell underneath, because we know that he was caught for murder, for being a rebel, for going against Rome. And, he was probably a self-righteous Jew. And so he's being held captive and he's getting ready to go to crucifixion. I mean, they've got pretty hard charges against Barabbas. And so Pilate goes out to them and he says, hey, Barabbas probably can't hear this, but he says, hey, listen, I've got no fault in Jesus. I can't find anything that is punishable by death, and he's really not our issue, so give him back to us. And then they start screaming, crucify him, crucify him. Now, I bet you Barabbas heard that part, right? Imagine a whole swarm of people. We're talking like thousands upon thousands of Jews probably in this area screaming, crucify him. And as the crowd starts to build and as they start the emotion starts to well within them, everyone else starts to take place, right? It's like a concert where everyone starts yelling encore. Eventually, everybody's shouting back, and I'm sure that Barabbas heard them scream, crucify him. But in his mind, they're probably, he thinks they're talking about him because he's not going to hear Pilate talk, but he hears the crucify him. So he's assuming probably that they're talking about him. Little does he know they're talking about Jesus, because Pilate is getting ready to release one of them. He's hoping that the Jews will say, all right, Barabbas is a terrible person. He's a murderer. He's doing all these crazy rebellious acts, not only against Jews, but against Rome. And yeah, he probably needs to die. But they don't. They say, we would rather take Barabbas than someone who claims the blasphemy of being the Son of God, much less God alone. So crucify Jesus, and they keep screaming this out, crucify him, crucify him. And so Jesus gets flogged in chapter 19. You see that Jesus was sent out. He was flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns. They put it on his head. They clothed him in purple robe, and they went up to him again and again, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. They were mocking him, and they slapped him on the face. And once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis of a charge against him. Verse 5 in chapter 19. And so when Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, Here is the man. And as soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, Crucify, crucify. And then we go on to the part where Pilate basically says, This choice is yours. My hands are clean. Who do you want free, Jesus or Barabbas? And they choose Barabbas. Crucify Christ. Now imagine this. Stay with me for a second. Imagine Barabbas being in that holding cell underneath all this and only hearing crucify him, crucifying, assuming that they're talking about him. The question that was posed to me, and this is what got me thinking, because this really challenged me. He says, why did the early church know Barabbas' name? And that's a question I want to ask you. Why do you think the early church knew who this man was? Because you see a lot of stories of Jesus coming in contact with people, and most of the names that are written in the Bible are there for a reason. And the early church knew who they were because of their conversion. What if what Jesus was doing there on the altar of Pilate or whatever it may be, what if all that stuff converted Barabbas, where he realized the grace of Jesus was for him as well? And as Jesus was going to the cross, as he was expecting to be as Barabbas was expecting to be crucified and Jesus took his place, that grace finally overwhelmed Barabbas, where he recognizes Jesus for who he is. What if Barabbas changed his life around, knowing that Jesus went to the cross when he should have been the one hanging up there, and then all of a sudden his entire life changed because of the grace that Jesus has given to this man? I wonder if the early church knew his name because he converted to being a Christian once he was released from captivity. I don't know. The Bible doesn't clear that up. But what if that's the case? That the kingdom that Jesus is building is for people like Barabbas, people who recognize that they need a savior. And so I don't know what your plans are this Easter. I don't know where you're going to celebrate, but I just want to challenge you with this. How often do you give God all of your praise and all of your glory for something that he has done? I think that we easily overthink, and that we don't give the justice due that Jesus quite deserves. And I know for me, I often take for granted what Christ has done. Does the early church know your name? Do they know who you are because of the conversion of you coming to Christ, because of the things that he has done? And although Pilate has no idea what he's doing here, he has no idea what just happened or why he's crucifying and who he's crucifying, but he hands it over to the Jews. They still have no idea, but yet Jesus goes through with it, and he continues to go forth. And there's one thing that I want to say. I gotta find it. I'll summarize it. But basically, Pilate is still talking with Jesus, and he says, listen, do you not want to speak to me? And he says, or here it is, verse 10, do you refuse to speak to me? Pilate said, don't you realize I have the power either to free you or to crucify you? He's telling Jesus he has the power of life and death. And look at what Jesus' response is. Verse 11, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. My Father gave you that power because this is his will. So wherever you go this weekend, however it is that you worship God, however it is that you give your all to him, remember that it was God's will for Jesus to go to the cross so that you can be forgiven. My prayer for you this Easter is that you don't take that lightly. And that if you're exhausted this week, consider that joy. If you're having a hard week, consider that joy, as James says, because Jesus was sent so that you could be forgiven. And so that I can be forgiven. So let's celebrate with all that we have this Easter Sunday. Friends, have a great week. We'll see you next time.